So in this video we're going to take a look at how we create this window cleaning calculator. We will be setting up everything from scratch, and it do have some functionality where when you can say if we go and say that we have like 30 small windows to $1 each, and we click at the side here, you can see it will calculate on the fly. You can also see if we put in an interval that if it should be only every 6 months, the price would be a little bit higher. And when we click that, you can see we will get the price. It will also calculate the price per month, so what the customer should actually put aside every month to get the final price for every clean. The prices is of course just some optional prices you can put in yourself. We will also insert some additional services. So if you, for example, want the indoor cleaning also, we would double the price and a little bit more. So when you click that, you can see we get the new price here. So I myself have actually been a window cleaner for like 2 years now, and I know the prices here is, for some people it would actually be very cheap, and for some it would be expensive. It very much depends on the country you're in and also where in the country that you are, because there is a huge difference in prices. It might be a little bit rare to find a programmer and a window cleaner in the same person, so I will focus just on programming in this video, because it is of course necessary to be able to do some C# and also Blazor, because we're going to set this up all in Blazor. The only thing that actually doesn't do anything here is the order button, and it is on purpose because you could go and do several things with this button. You could go and just do so this offer is going to be sent in an email. Then they also have to go and of course put in some customer information, but you could also go and redirect it to a page where you could just go and people could actually go and sign up a subscription instantly. So that is why I keep this button very open, so you can go and do whatever you want. The only thing we are interested in is actually the calculator here. So let's go and open a new project in Visual Studio 2022. We will go and create a new project. It will be a Blazor web app, and we will say next. And the project name, you could go and call it Window Cleaning Calculator. And I'll say next, and we will say create with .NET 8 here. I also want to mention that this is of course like the bare bone of what you want to go and show your customer on your website. You can go and integrate this calculator. If you have a Blazor website, for example, then it will of course just go and be like a component on your website, and you can of course go and put some additional services also beside of these there already are. So now that your project is created, we can go and open the components here and the pages, and we're just interested in going to the home page here. So I will go and remove all this, and we're actually also interested in going to the layout and the main layout here, because we do want to get rid of the sidebar. So just go and delete this. If you are building this on a website and you already have a menu, then of course don't go and remove this. Another thing we also want to get rid of is this bar here. So it's just the upper menu where it says about. So you can go and remove this also. So when we do run the application now, you should have a whole white page now. But before we go and create any code on our homepage or our home.razor file, I will actually go to the www root, because in here we actually want to go and create 2 folders. So go and right click, say add, and the first one is a new folder called images, and then go and right click again, and let's add a new folder again, and this one is called fonts. So it is pretty much just so we can go and include some custom fonts and also a place to save our images. So I do already have these 3 images here. It's a small window, medium window, and large window. I will try to find a place so you can go and download these also, just to play along. I will put a link in the description, but I will go and drag them to my image folder. And then I also downloaded this Aksha font. You can go and download it directly from Google. I will also put a link in the description. But when you download the folder, you can see in here it's actually a zip file, and you just have to right click, say extract all, and then extract. I have already done it because it is right here. So when I double click this, we do have a folder in here also called static, and from in here we actually only I actually only use the regular and the bold, so I'll just go and drag them into the fonts folder, and then we can just go and close this. So I will not go and just sit and type and you just have to sit and wait along. I will go and paste in some code at a time and explain it, so you don't really have to sit and wait. So the absolute first thing I put in is the container of our whole page here, or the whole calculator. So every single HTML tag will be in here. It have a class called container, so we are using Bootstrap, which is already integrated into Blazor. You also have a folder over here called Bootstrap. Then I will make the background dark, and then we can actually go and make the opacity to 10%. So basically what it means is that we have a very dark background, but we go and make it more transparent. And since we have a white background as the default, it will be very light gray. And finally we put some padding. It is the maximum padding we can put on the box, and it is just so that everything inside don't hit the edges of the box. It just looks a little bit prettier. I also implemented the code section here so that we're ready to go and put some attributes and whatever logic that we have to put into the calculator. I should also mention that in this video we set the currency to dollars, but it is really not only dollar that you can use. You can go and put every currency that you want, because typically you want to have your local currency from the country that you actually window clean from. But the first thing we put in is the headline. I have made a class called headline, and it is just an H1 tag here. And I go and say calculate your price. So that will just be the headline. So right now this is how it looks, and it doesn't really look so good. We want to have it centered, and we also want to have another font. So let's go and do that. So to make some CSS on your website, we can go and open the app.css folder here, and then let's scroll down to the button here so we can go and add some different things. So I actually both took the headline and also a class called subheadline so that we can go and create them at the same time here. So the headline, we're going to set it to a font size of 70 pixels. It is of course all up to you what you do with it. And we also set a text align to center. And we also go in the subheadlines that we're going to create. We will have a font of 30 pixels, and we have a text align that is center. And we do also have a text decoration, which will be underline. But as you can see here, we actually don't include any fonts. So what we will do, I will go and do it at the top here. So at the top we can go and make some extra space so that we can go and create these font faces. So the font face is just to import a custom font to your Blazor application. So the first thing we will specify in one of these is the font family, which is actually just the name that you want to use when you want to use it. So in this case I say Aksha regular, and in the next case we say Aksha bold, just so we know which one is each. The source is taken from a URL, which is actually just the fonts folder that we created over here, and then we can go inside that folder and take the actual font, so Aksha regular.tff, which is this one. And you will of course go and do the same with the bold version. So to actually go and create everything on our page, this font family, I will actually go and use the bold one here, go and copy it, and then put it inside this HTML and the body instead of Helvetica. So basically what it means now is that we have the font family, and we will go and use this font. And if it cannot find this font, it will go and use a Helvetica font. And if it cannot find it, it will go and use Arial, and so on. It will go and use sans serif, which just means that it will be any sans serif font if it cannot find any of these three. But since we integrated it in our project, it should be able to find this. So when we run the website again here, you can see we do now have the right font that we want to use, and it's also centered because we did say that in the class. So for now I just put inside our home.razor file, I put some sections that we're going to use, and you can see we have a div here which will just be the container to the whole section where we say what number of windows do we have to use in our calculation. In the next section we will go and use the interval, and then finally we will go and use the additional services that we provide. We will at last go and create a number 4 where we get the total amount and also the button. So the thing I added now was to every section I added the sub headline. So it's just an h2 tag with the class of sub headline. It was the class that we created just before in the CSS file. So now we can easily see which section is which. So this one is the number of windows, this is the interval, and this is going to be the additional services. And I did put some extra classes in here. So in this, for example, I say that the margin at the top should be 5. So it will just put a big margin at the top, actually on this headline. You could also go and put it like in this exact div here, but I do also do the same in the next section. And inside this section, we just have to say that the text should be centered, but we will come to that in just a moment. Now we will take one section at a time. So in the number of windows here, it is this section that we're going to create. So we do have to go and input like an image, a small text here, or a text where we say small, medium, and big. We also want to go and integrate the price. And then we need to make this input field so that people can go and insert how many windows. So to do that, we are going to use something called Flexbox. It is a thing that you can use without Bootstrap, but in this case we do use Bootstrap, so we say D and then we say flex, so it knows that this div is going to use Flexbox inside. And then we can go and say justify content center, and it's actually just to go and center the boxes with some spacing in the sides. But inside the Flexbox here, we actually want to go and insert 3 containers. So you can see this is 1 container now, and now I just added 2 more. So it's actually these div here will go and be 1 container here. So for example, just the small one will be the first one, and then we have the second container and the third container. So I will just create the first container here, and then I will insert the rest because it pretty much say what it is that should be inside, because it is the same thing. It is just another image, another price, and so on. So first of all, we want to insert an image. And in this case, we want to say that the source is from the images folder that we created over here. And we have the small window PNG. So you can already see that this container is going to be the small window. We can also go and make an alternative text. So if the image is not showing up, it will go and display this. And it is also this text that Google will go and read. So, you know, the crawlers from Google will go and read this text. I will then go and set a height of 100. I think that is a fitting size. We will then go and insert a paragraph with a class called size text. And we will go and create this size text class. And inside here, we just want to display the small name. We then want to go and do the exact same with the cost here. So it is just a paragraph, but in this case, we're going to create a class called cost text, and we put the price here. So it is very hard coded, this, but it is also just a very small calculator that we create. So I think that is okay. You can manually go in and adjust the prices. The last thing we want to have here inside the first box is this input field. So the type of the input field will be number, because it is a number we want to have the user to put inside the input field. We do then have a minimum value. We don't want the number of small windows to be under 0. So 0 will be the minimum number. So you might see that there was some classes before, but I actually go and delete them. I wasn't using them because I found another way to do it. So I don't want to go and use classes on this input, but the final thing we will do is go and bind this to a variable called small windows. So whatever is put inside the input box will bind to this small windows. And we will just go down to our code section here and create it right now. So we do want to go and say private, and it is an integer because you cannot have like a half window. It will be a whole window every time. And we want to say small windows. So we do want to go and get and set this. and put it equal to 0. And I do already also want to include the medium windows and the large windows, just so we are already able to use these variables. So let's scroll up again. So I say to you that I will not use classes on the input, and I will show you why now. So let's go to the app.css, and now I just scroll down to the button. So this is actually the reason why I didn't include any classes, because we just want to go and target the input with the type of number by itself here. So the first thing I will do right here is actually go and remove the arrows on the box. So when I open the project here, you can see we have some arrows here. We can go and put it up and down, and I don't really like them, but if you like them, just make them be there. But I will just go and remove them, and that was the code that you just saw. So you can go and use this WebKit appearance and say none, and also the margin 0, then it will disappear. We can then go and put some custom CSS to our input field here. So we say input, and again we want to target the type of number. And what I mean by that is, if we go in again, you can see the type here is number in our input field. But we will go and set the padding to 10 pixel, the font size to 25 pixel, and the width to 50%. So I do think that looks pretty enough. You can always go and adjust the CSS as you like. So now when we are back in the home.razor file, I will just go and take all this, so the image, the paragraphs, and the input, and insert them down here to the next one. So now when that is inserted, you can see here, these was the next two boxes. We have the medium window here, where I put the medium window.png inside instead. Call it medium window icon. It is still the same size. And the text here will just be medium. We have a price, and then the input here will also just be the same, but you will bind it to the medium windows instead. So we do have the three variables now, both the small, medium, and large windows variables. So if we take a look at the page now, we can see that we have the text here. We do have the input fields for all of the sizes, but these texts look a little bit small and a little bit far from each other. So let's go and fix that. The only thing we have to do to fix it is to go and create the size text and the cost text inside our CSS. So we do want to go and create these classes. So let's go to the app.css again, and let's make some more space here. Then I have created the size text class and the cost text class. So the size text, we do make a font size of 22 pixel, and margin bottom should be 0, so that the cost text will move a little bit closer to the size text. Then we will go and put the font size to 18, and also the color set it to gray on the cost text, so the price that we show. So when we take a look at the page now, we can see it looks a little bit better. You can of course go and adjust it as you want. So now back on our home.razor page, we have actually created all the things that we need inside the number of windows. So let's go to the next section, which is this interval. So the first thing we will insert inside the interval section here is a div with a class of grid. We do want to go and create a grid for this, and it will have a text alignment of center. So say text center. This is just a bootstrap class we can go and use. So it will be a very simple grid that we're going to create, because we only want to insert buttons inside. We just start with one button, and we will go and add all the other when I have explained what the button should contain. So we will go and make a class called interval button, just so that we can go and actually style the button as we want. So when you take a look at the next thing here, so we do have a variable called interval also that we want to create in our code. And when we click on the first button here, it will go and set this interval to 1. So if we just scroll a bit over, you can see when we on-click this button, we will go and run a function called setInterval. And in this case, the parameter will be 1. So we will go and set this interval or make this function in just a moment. But the thing that this setInterval do is actually just to go and set the interval variable to 1. And if the interval variable is equal to 1, then it will go, and we can set this question mark to make an if-else statement in one line here. So if the interval is 1, we can go and put in this active interval class, and it is just to go and style it to mark it as it is selected. Else, if it is not 1, it will just go and insert nothing. So hopefully in just a moment it will be a little bit more clear what is happening. But the button will say every month. So this option that we have here is the button. If you click this one, it will get the value of 1. So it is every 1 month that we do want to go and clean the windows. And because you are a good customer and you want to have clean windows every month, it will not cost any extra. It will just be the price, as you see. So now let's go and first of all, let's go and create the interval variable. And then we will also go and create this method called setInterval. So you have to remember this is actually just a method to go and set this to the value that we put in here. And of course, for every button, we will have a different value. So inside our code section, we will go and make a new private int called interval. And just by default, we want to set it to 1 so that the default is just every month. And then the next thing we will do is to go and make the method called setInterval. It is a private method which will just return void, and it will go and have one parameter, which is in this case it's called multiply. It's not true. You could also go and call it choice. You can also just call it x actually. So let's go and call it x, because the only thing we need to do with this is to put it equal to the interval. So it is just as it said, set interval. So when this is set up, we can scroll up again, and now you can see the button looks fine here. So if we click on this button and set the interval to 1, by default it will be 1, then it will go and add this class to the actual button and style it the way we want. So we do of course need to go and create this class and also the interval button class. So let's go to the app.css and at the button make some space again. So I have now created 2 classes here, and one where we're going to say what should be happening when we hover it. So we do have our interval button, which will be a class that is on every button that we create. So also on the 2 month or 3 months and 6 months and so on. So we do want to set the background color to white. I set no border on the button. We have to remember this is an actual button, so by default it have some border. I will go and set the height to 100 and the width to 130. The margin I will set to 5 pixels. And then we will go and make a transition. And actually I don't want this border color. We just want to go and make a transition on the background color. It will take 0.3 seconds and we will do it with ease. So just to finish off this interval button, we will, when we go and hover it, we will just go and put the background color to a light green. So the final thing we set up here is the active interval class. And it is when we have chosen a button to click, or when we have chosen a interval, this is what will override the interval button. So the background color will be set to a dark green. The color of the text will be white, and again we will put some margin at 5. Actually, I don't think we need this because it is already 5, so just go and remove that. So back in our home.razor file, let's go and insert the next button also. And as you can see, it is actually just a copy paste of the last one. There might be a better way to do this if you loop a button or something and put the interval in an array. But I just think it's a lot of work instead of just go and copy and paste it, because we actually only need a couple of them. And we can go and manually say interval should be 2, so it's every second month. If we click this button, it will go and set the interval to 2 with this method. And since the interval is then set to 2, it will go and set this active interval class on this button and go and remove it from the other button. So you can see this is the second month. So every second month they want to have clean windows. And then we will add a small amount of extra fee because, you know, there have been 1 month extra dirt on the windows, so it will just be a little bit more effort. So now I just put in the rest of the button. We have a number 3 and number 6 because it's every 6 months, a 12 because it's every year, and then we do have a 0. And what I mean by this 0 is that they don't really want a subscription, they just want to get clean window one time. So since this customer is not providing any value in the future also, they will go and pay like double, because there is also a lot of work in the administration, of course, and sending a bill and so on, and put up the actual customer into the system. So it will cost some more because they are not a subscription customer. But when that is all set up, you can now see when we hover, it will be light green. And we do have the every month, every second month, third month, and so on. And when we click it, like let's say we click on the 6 month, you can see it's now the active one. And the code behind also know that this is the active one. So right now it is actually pretty much the UI that we're going to make at first, and then we will go and create all the logic behind afterwards. So let's now go and put in the additional services. So let's go and make some room for this. The first thing I will do is just a simple div with a class of the text sender, so everything inside here will be centered. I will then go and make another div inside, which is just a form, or actually it is just the input and the label that we put in here. But to style it a bit with Bootstrap, we can go and use this form check. As you can see here, when we use the form check, we do have to specify also in here a form check input and a form check label, so it will style as Bootstrap wanted. You can also go and make some margin here, and then we will go and say that it should be an inline block. So it should go and display as inline block, like if you want to go and put it manually with CSS. But this is also just a Bootstrap class. So we do put in an input and a label. And if we start with the input, we do have the class, as I just mentioned. It will be the type of a checkbox, and we want to go and put an ID. And the reason we will do this is actually to link it to the actual label, so that you can go and actually enable and disable the checkbox here also by clicking the label. So when you create an ID inside the input here and call it something, you will also go and make a for inside your label and then give it the same name as we have as the ID. Then they will link together. And the last thing we need here is to bind it to a variable called wiping. So I actually don't know if it's called anything else. It sounds maybe a little bit weird, but I know in Denmark we have, like, if we clean the bottom of a window after you clean the whole window, and then you have a lot of water on the downside of the window, we can actually go and wipe it away so you don't have all the wetness. And in some cases it do cost a little bit more, and some companies actually don't charge extra for it. But we will go and bind this wiping, and wiping is just a false or true that we're going to make to know if we should add the 20% extra in the price. So we do have the label also. It almost says itself now because we have the class, and we do have the for, which was just linking the input here. And then this is what the label will display on the website. So we say wiping and then just parentheses and 20%. So down in the code, I just added all the additional services that we will add to the website. And it will just be private bulls, all of them, because it will be checkboxes. And we do have the wiping here. And you can go and say that it should be false as default. Of course, you choose whatever you want. If it should be true as default, you can set it to that. And then I will also go and add some frame cleaning. So, the whole frame of the window, should we also go and clean that? Now we already cleaned the window. And then you also have indoor cleaning. So do you want to add indoor cleaning? So we will just go up now and put these next to additional services also, so that we can go and enable and disable them. So I know it looks like a lot of code, but it is actually just the same. So I did the wiping here, then I added the frame cleaning as the next box. So we do just bind it to the frame cleaning variable, and we do go and just change the text here and also the ID, so that we just go and link it to the right label. And again, the indoor cleaning is just the same. Go and edit the ID and the for inside the label and bind it to the correct variable called indoor cleaning, and also go and insert the right text to the user. So if we look at it now, it looks very nice. I think that we could maybe go and make this a little bit bigger, but it is of course all up to you. It's a very small text, but if you do want to go and do that, just go and add a class and go to the CSS file and go and say that the file size should be a little bit bigger. So underneath the additional services, I have now inserted this div, which is actually the div which will contain the monthly price and the price per cleaning. So we do have a div at the beginning here where we want to center all the text and just make some margin at the top to divide it a little bit from the additional services. Then we will go and create a paragraph which have a class, and it should not have any margins at all. It's just to bring it a little bit closer to the H3 that is just beneath, which is actually showing the monthly price. So I do also go and create this class called monthly price, and I use it on both here. And in the paragraph, we just display to the user price per month, so that they can see what do they need to put aside every month they get their salary. How much should they go and put aside? So let's say that every 3 months it costs $60, and if they only get like every 3 months, then they will go and have to put $20 aside every month to get the cleaning every 3 months. So the only thing we need to do here is to actually go and create the actual variable called monthly price. And we do want to say toString, and the reason we want to do that is because when we say F2 here, it will always go and include 2 decimals. Because if you don't do this and it says like maybe $10 and 10 cents, then it will just go and display $10 and 1. It will just display 1, so it will not put the last 0. But when you do this, you force it to go and put the last 0. So as you can see here, we force it to do this. But if you don't do it, it will not take the last 0, and it will just go and display this amount. And in this case, it is in dollar. So it just looks a little bit weird. But we actually do exactly the same down here with the base price. And the base price is just the price per cleaning. So every time we come and clean, let's say every 3 months, then this will be the price. And we will again go and display it as the one before. And in this case, we will also go and say the total price here as a class. So we will go and style it with that. And the final UI thing that we need to create is the order button. And I don't want to do anything with it in this video. It is really up to you what should be happening next. So the first thing I want to insert here, and I will just insert one thing at a time because else I don't think it's too obvious what is happening. So we do want to go and make a new private variable, and it should be a double, and it will be the base price. So the price for every time the cleaning is done. Then the next thing we can do is to go and create another private variable. It should also be a double because we need to show how many cents that the service also costs. So we will say monthly price, and then it will get the monthly price from a method that we're going to run every time that we need to calculate something. So now we will go and create the actual method that is calculating the monthly price. And it's actually also in here that we just manually set the base price when we calculate everything. So we do have to say that this is going to return a double, because it will be the monthly price that we actually return from this method. And as you can see, it is red underline here, but it is just because we are not returning anything yet inside the method. So to actually go and calculate the base price, we need to remember when we actually go and put it equal to something in here, it will also go out globally here in our variable that we created here and reflected also inside the actual calculation, so the user will see the price update in real time. But the way that we actually want to go and calculate the base price is pretty simple, because we do want to go and take all the small windows and multiply it by 1. So let's say that there is 10 small windows. We multiply it by 1 because 1 is the price of the window, so it's $1. And the medium windows will be $1.50. So if you say 10 medium windows inside the UI, it will multiply by 1.5, so it will be $15. And the same goes with the large windows. And then when we have the amount from the small windows, the medium windows, and the large windows, we will just go and add them together, so we get the full price of every window. And that is also the reason that we don't want anyone to be able to go and say minus, because then they could actually go in and that will give a negative price, which will of course be bad for business. I actually think that the UI right now is actually still able to go and make minus, so you might want to go and do a check before this to say, is this smaller than 0, and is this smaller than 0, and so on, because then you can go and check if they have put negative number of windows. So now when we have the base price for the windows, we can go and actually calculate from the interval. Also, we do need to add some extra percentages if they choose other things than the interval that was number 1, because then they get every month. But in this case, if the interval is set to 2, so if they only want to get window cleaning every second month, we will go in and take the base price and set it equal to the base price and multiply it by 1.1. This will increase the base price with 10%. You can also go and actually just do it like this. Say multiply equals, then it will go and add the 10% to the base price. But just to have a little bit better overview, I will do it like this. So now I just added all the other interval. We have the interval 3, 6, 12, and 0. I do know that this doesn't look quite good programmatically, but now when we think of it's only a simple calculator that don't need so much adjustment in the future, hopefully, then I do think all these if is okay, because you can manually just go in and say if you want to increase or decrease the percentages here. But when we hit the interval of 0, which was just a one-time window cleaning, then we will just go and double the price, so that would be 100% more. So just say times 2. The next thing we want to look at is the additional services that we had. So it's very simple actually, because we just want to say if wiping, and it just means if that is true. So if the checkbox was tapped on or is enabled, then go and add the 20% to the base price. And again, if the frame cleaning was on also, then go and double the price. And if indoor is also on, go and say 2.2. So it is pretty simple to go and create these additional services also. So another thing I just thought about was if the price is under $20, let's say that you have a person who only wants like one window cleaned, then you cannot start up the car, drive to a whole nother city and do it for all like $1. It would just not work. So this is just to go and set a minimum price no matter what. When you have done all the calculation up here, if the price is still under $20, then go and put the price to $20, because you cannot go and clean the windows for less. And almost finally here, we just want to go and take the base price we have and go and use the math class here to go and round it so that we don't have, you know, a lot of decimals, because we just want to go and display 2 of them. So this is just to go and clean it up a bit. And finally, we will go and return the monthly price, which was actually what all this was about. So you can see this was the calculated monthly price. So we do need to go and return that. And we do again go and use the math and round it to the 2 decimals. But instead of just go and return the base price, it is actually the base price divided by the interval. So if the interval was every 3 months, you will go and take the base price divided by 3, then you get the monthly price. So I did actually skip a little bit styling. I will also walk you through that, but we should actually be able to run it all now, and it should work. So the code is actually done here, but the thing we didn't implement was this monthly price and the total price. So, and also actually the order button. So I'll just go and show you how I set them up inside the app.css here. So for the total price class, I actually just go and increase the font size to 50. And for the monthly price, I actually also just go and make it gray. So it's a little bit smaller than the total price, and it will just be grayed out because the important is almost like the total price for every cleaning and not the monthly. It's actually just like a extra service to show. And the final thing is the order button. So I will make a green order button. It will have a white color text. The font size will be 20 pixels. I will put some padding just to make it look a little bit better, and we will remove the border, and the width I will set it to 400 pixels. So you might want to set this, if you think about responsive design, you might want to go and set a percentage or something. And I should say that, or mention that, it is actually not so much optimized to responsive design, but it should be very easy to go and actually do, because we already use something like Flexbox and a grid, so it should be okay. But if we run the script now, you can actually see that everything should be looking fine. So we do always have a minimum of $20 because that is what we set it to be. And the reason it know this already is because inside the code, when we start up the application, it will go and run through all these, which means that it will also go and run through the monthly price here and go and actually run this when we start it up. So it will go and run the whole calculation. But let's go and try it out. So let's say that we have 20 small windows, and when you click outside the box, we can actually see nothing happens because it is $1 per small window. So it will just be $20. So if I set it to 21 and go outside again, you can see it will now be $21. We can go and add like a big window, let's say 5 of these, and let's also go and say 10 medium. Then it will go and calculate everything. And if you say it should be every 3 months, it will go and put 20% upon the price. So we can really go and just see if it will do this correctly by go and calculate it ourselves. We do now have a price of 55.20. So let's try and say that. And we want to put 100%. So we say times 2. So it will be this price if we go and put the frame cleaning on. And as we can see, it will go and calculate the right price. And a thing you can actually see, if we don't have any windows at all, and we say like 3 months, you can see the price per month will still go and change. So that's actually very nice, even though we don't have any windows, but the price will be 20 no matter what. And when you hit this one time here, it actually doesn't matter the price per month. It will just go and make this icon. I actually don't know why it make this icon, but maybe it's just saying that it cannot multiply by 0 because it is the value we have the interval to when we put the one time on here. But yeah, that was actually it for this video. I hope you learned something. I will go and see if I can put these images in so you can use them. You can of course go and use this project to a lot. You could also go and make it to other projects than just window cleaning. And you can of course go and expand this as you want. Add some extra services, extra intervals, whatever you want. A thing that I have been thinking about is how do the customer know it's a small window and medium and big, and you could maybe go and put like a question mark where when you hover or you click it, you could explain what is a small window. You could also go and put an extra paragraph with some dimensions on the window. But yeah, thank you for watching and go and have a nice day. Bye.